Imagine this. A woman, quietly sleeping in her hospital room, suddenly opens her eyes after 30 years of slumber. This is not a scene from a movie or the plot of a science fiction novel. This is reality, where Joy Williams, a resident of a small town in Pennsylvania, regains consciousness after a long coma. Her awakening was a real shock for the entire medical staff. The doctors and nurses who had watched over her for so many years could not believe their eyes. Interestingly, her first reaction was not in words but in movement. Seeing a pencil and paper nearby, Joy began to draw as if her hands already knew what they wanted to depict. Joy's family was stunned by the news. Her son, who had been a little boy when his mother fell into a coma and was now a grown man, could not hold back tears of joy and relief. He watched as she carefully drew lines on the blank sheet, feeling as though each stroke held a secret that only she could unravel. When Joy finished her first drawing, everyone around held their breath. The image was simple, but it was the first step in her return to the world. No one yet knew that soon these drawings would become something more than just a form of creative self-expression. This moment marked the beginning of a series of events that would soon overturn people's understanding of the human brain's capabilities and spark the interest of the scientific community worldwide. What lies behind these strange pictures that began with a simple movement of the hand? The first steps into an uncharted world. And so, Joy Williams took her first steps into a new world for her, armed with nothing but paper and a pencil. Waking up after such a long sleep should have been overwhelming, but Joy began to adapt surprisingly quickly. Her eyes, as if rediscovering the light, curiously studied the world around her. The doctors, still in awe, watched as she took her first steps around the ward, gradually regaining her physical stability. These steps were not only physical but also symbolized her return to life, from which she had disappeared so long ago. The real surprise for those around her were her drawings. At first, they were simple sketches, like a cup on the table or an open window, but soon her works began to impress with their detail and precision. And although Joy still couldn't explain what guided her hand, it seemed that each drawing carried something more than just an image. Her son, seeing his mother take such an interest in drawing, brought her more materials and gave her the freedom to create. With each passing day, her confidence grew, and her drawings became more complex and vibrant. A sacred source of energy, which had long been hidden inside her, seemed to burst forth. These paintings, which at first glance seemed random, began to attract the interest of the medical staff and then of a wider audience as the first strange coincidences started to appear. But what was really hidden behind these works of art, and what mystery was this new world meant to reveal to Joy? Mysterious drawings of upcoming events. Gradually, Joy's drawings began to take on a different character. They became not just a reflection of her new world, but the beginning of something strange and inexplicable. One day she drew a bus full of people. At first everyone thought it was just an artistic experiment. However, a few days later, a coincidence occurred. The local news reported an accident involving a bus. Coincidence or not, the picture almost exactly depicted the place and time of the incident. Such a turn of events could not go unnoticed. Joy's family and the medical staff began to view her artwork with growing interest and even a certain sense of awe. With each passing day, her works became more detailed and their content more intriguing. The next drawing was of a bridge over a raging river. And again, a couple of days later, the news reported the destruction of a bridge due to severe flooding. These coincidences began to frighten her loved ones, but at the same time sparked interest among the general public. Television and newspaper reports started to pay attention to this phenomenon, and people began calling Joy a prophetess. It seemed that Joy had discovered incredible abilities within herself that had previously lain deep in her subconscious. A few more paintings depicting even more serious events soon confirmed her gift. One of them showed a forest fire, and soon the news reported a major blaze in a neighboring state. Such cases began to snowball, and interest in Joy and her works continued to grow. Soon, representatives of the scientific community appeared on her doorstep, eager to unravel the mystery hidden within her mind and talent. But can science explain what seems to be beyond human understanding? The first coincidences, mere chance or a gift. With each new drawing by Joy Williams, her loved ones became increasingly filled with wonder and growing concern. It was as if her works were turning into real events, happening just a few days after they were created. Shortly after the incident with the bus and the bridge, Joy drew a skyscraper with plumes of smoke rising above it. Less than 3 days later, a major fire broke out in the business center building in a neighboring city. The fire was extensive, and its aftermath was widely covered in the news. The coincidences kept piling up, and even the most skeptical began to wonder what kind of phenomenon was hidden behind these drawings. Meanwhile, Joy kept drawing as if guided by some unknown force. Her next painting depicted a huge ocean liner in distress among towering waves. This time, a little more time passed, but a week later the news reported a disaster involving a cruise ship in the Atlantic Ocean. This incident attracted the attention not only of local media, but also of international outlets. The painting created by Joy once again became the center of discussion and the subject of study. Realizing the seriousness of what was happening, Joy's family decided to consult specialists. Soon, scientists from various fields began to investigate Joy's phenomenon. Some tried to explain it psychologically, while others conducted tests, studying her brain activity. But no modern technology could answer the question, how can one predict events that have not yet happened? Amazingly, in her paintings, Joy began to depict not just local incidents, but events that had an impact on the entire world. Will she be able to hold on to the key to the mystery? And what will happen if one day her brush paints something truly terrifying? When paintings begin to come to life, each new day revealed a new facet of Joy's unusual gift. Her paintings became increasingly detailed and specific. One day, she painted a scene from a city park with children playing on the merry-go-rounds and a clear blue sky overhead. However, the painting was far from serene. Above one of the trees, dark smoke was billowing. A day later, the local news reported a fire that had broken out in the park. It was a small but shocking detail that could not be ignored. The next drawing was even more ominous. Joy depicted a huge factory with a towering smokestack from which thick black smoke poured out, obscuring the bright sun. A few days later, there was an explosion at the oil refinery in her hometown, causing a major fire. This incident shocked everyone, and more people began to see Joy as a woman with a mysterious gift. While Joy tried to ignore the excitement surrounding her artistic work, scientists and researchers from around the world became increasingly interested in her abilities. They sought to understand how she could predict events with such frightening accuracy. The scientific methods used to analyze her brain and creative process yielded no clear answers. The mystery remained unsolved, but Joy kept painting, slowly revealing to the world unknown pages of the future. Soon her brush depicted a scene that stunned everyone, a massive meteor threatening Earth. Will this really happen? Time will tell. Prophecies of disasters that came true. When Joy's paintings began to take on a more ominous tone, her family and those around her realized that what was happening went far beyond ordinary coincidence. Her next drawing caused a real stir. It depicted a city shrouded in a thick gray cloud with crimson flashes of flame breaking through. A few days later, the world learned about a powerful earthquake in one of the major metropolises, accompanied by a devastating fire that engulfed entire neighborhoods. This event came as a shock to everyone, knowing that Joy had depicted it almost exactly before it happened. By this point, Joy's predictions could no longer be disputed. Her works were studied by many experts, but no methods or technologies could explain how she was able to foresee events. Scientists tried to understand her phenomenon, conducting numerous studies and experiments, but her mysterious gift remained unsolved. Joy's next drawing depicted a scene from a northern region covered by a powerful snowstorm. Only a week later, the news reported an unpredictable climate change that caused a severe snowstorm in that remote area. These events sparked waves of discussion, and the world began to see Joy not just as an artist with an unusual gift, but as a bearer of potentially important information. Meanwhile, Joy, as if obeying some unknown force, continued to paint. Her next painting depicted a massive tsunami crashing onto the shore with people trying to escape. This time, the prediction was extremely alarming, and it sparked a wave of anxiety among those who followed her work. And although no one knew exactly when this would happen, public attention to her phenomenon continued to grow. Soon, scientists and researchers from different corners of the world joined forces to unravel the secret hidden behind these frightening images. Would her paintings become a harbinger of even greater events? The reaction of the scientific community, an attempt to solve the mystery. Upon learning about the unique case of Joy Williams, scientists from all over the world began to show active interest. Her artworks, which in a strange way predicted major events, became the subject of intriguing study. First and foremost, neurologists and psychologists focused on studying her brain, trying to find an explanation for such a phenomenon. They conducted numerous tests and experiments using advanced brain scanning technologies, but unfortunately did not get a clear answer. Meanwhile, Joy continued to paint as if nothing had happened. Psychologists suggested that she might have somehow connected to the collective unconscious, allowing her to sense impending disasters. However, this hypothesis remained without solid scientific justification. Meanwhile, many scientists began analyzing her drawings, trying to predict which events might occur in the foreseeable future. Some of them were convinced that understanding her gift could provide humanity with incredible advantages. Other researchers, including specialists in paranormal phenomena, saw in Joy a manifestation of unknown psychic abilities that humanity can only speculate about for now. Their interest in her phenomenon intensified after yet another prediction about a large-scale natural disaster turned out to be accurate. This event once again confirmed Joy's incredible gift, further fueling the interest of scientists and the public. Now everyone was waiting to see what Joy would depict next, and whether science would finally be able to unravel her mystery. Psychological and scientific explanations of the phenomenon. Meanwhile, interest in Joy Williams and her mysterious paintings continued to grow. Scientists from various disciplines joined forces to uncover the nature of her mysterious gift. Psychologists began analyzing her subconscious, putting forward theories that Joy might possess highly developed intuitive abilities, allowing her brain to somehow pick up on data from the surrounding world that we do not notice. This explanation, however, remained more hypothetical than proven. Some neurologists suggested that after such a prolonged coma, changes in Joy's brain might have opened new neural pathways, activating abilities that had previously been hidden deep within her consciousness. But despite numerous tests and scans, scientists did not find any specific anomalies that could point to the source of her unusual gift. Other experts expressed the opinion that her long sleep in a coma somehow heightened Joy's perception, allowing her to anticipate events. But this explanation is also insufficiently developed. Researchers studying paranormal phenomena claimed that Joy might possess unique psychic abilities, such as clairvoyance or precognition. This hypothesis sparked interest among a wider audience, especially in light of Joy's subsequent accurate predictions, but it remained unproven from a scientific standpoint. Despite the efforts of the global scientific elite, the mystery of Joy's phenomenon remained out of reach. Each of her new drawings continued to astonish and frighten at the same time, leaving many questions unanswered. And as her work took on an increasingly dark character, tension among experts and the public continued to grow. Now everyone could only speculate about what Joy would see in her next vision, and more often wondered whether her gift could become a guiding star in preventing future catastrophes. What if she were to predict the end of the world? Joy Williams's paintings continued to shock and intrigue more and more people around the world, but soon her work took on a truly sinister tone. In one of her latest drawings, she depicted something that made everyone hold their breath, a stricken planet shrouded in fiery storms. This painting terrified everyone who was already aware of her ability to predict events. The eerie images depicted by Joy made the hint at an apocalypse unmistakable, and now many were wondering if this could really happen. Scientists and researchers who had been following her work for a long time were both astonished and concerned. They began urgently gathering data to assess possible risks and prepare for potential catastrophic events. But without a clear understanding of where Joy drew her visions from, they could only speculate about the likelihood of such scenarios. The townspeople, having learned about the new drawing, turned to local authorities, asking them to prepare for any possible consequences. Discussions began about the need to organize international consultations and develop an action plan in case of a global threat. Meanwhile, Joy seemed to continue painting at the same pace, unaware of the panic her visions had caused. Her brush, moving across the canvas, seemed to guide her toward unknown images of the future. Psychology experts tried to delve into her subconscious to understand how she arrived at such frightening predictions. However, the answer remains elusive, leaving the much-needed hope only in her next work. Now the whole world, holding its breath, waited to see what vision Joy would reveal in her next painting and what it might mean for humanity.